Let me know if you feel similar to how I feel or if you've made different experiences from mine. But when it comes to the entire topic of death, loss, grief, and all the emotions that are attached to it, the information you have access to online is not really doing it for me. Whether it's self-help based and we're talking about the 5 or 7 or 10 different stages of grief, or whether it's more scientifically, medically based and we're talking about the reasons for why our body responds in these ways and that it's all just linked to our flight and fight mode. None of these informations have actually ever helped me. I even took a grief counselor training while I was studying, simply because I was trying to cope with all the death in my life. And although I have all of this knowledge crammed in my head and at the ready, it doesn't do anything for me while I'm actively grieving. For that reason, I will not use this video to educate. Instead, I will share with you my own personal method of how I'm dealing with this. Now, I faced death in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms over the course of my life, and of course due to my side vocation of rescuing animals, in particular cats, I've experienced a boatload of animal-related losses. Just a few weeks ago, I experienced the death of in total 4 cats. Now, while this is still significantly less than it was last year, and I'm really grateful for that, it was still quite interesting for me to see how I'm actually dealing with this, especially given the different circumstances surrounding these cats that raised or triggered different types of emotions within me. And I also had the opportunity to observe other people and how they deal with it in comparison to me. The first 2 losses were pretty hard on me simply because they could have been prevented. So there a lot of bad emotions, a lot of rage, anger, and even hatred got triggered within me. In contrast to that, the 3rd cat that passed triggered a lot of sadness, since this was one of my rescue successes. There was a cat that unfortunately got sick and passed after being adopted and living happily with his new family, so nobody saw that one coming, and it triggered a huge amount of sadness, but no anger. And during this rather prolonged period of grief, I decided to set the intention of becoming so resilient and used to this entire topic that when the next cat or person dies, even though I will still feel the pain, I will be able to just move on from it. And that's exactly what happened when I received the news of the 4th cat passing due to a car accident. Now, while I personally choose to believe that the pain I feel and the expression of that pain is an expression of the value I attached to that individual life, and I see it as something positive, I also strongly believe that nothing and nobody in this universe would ever want to be the reason for you to suffer to an extent where it impacts your well-being and your life. So my ultimate goal in dealing with the topic of death and loss has been and will always be to honor life. And that includes not only the life that has passed, but also my own life. Now again, everything that I do does not remove the initial pain and does not make me numb in any way, shape, or form. But it makes me strong, resilient, and allows me to move on and keep doing what I do. So the very first thing I do when I experience loss is I'm gonna be the sky about it. I just allow my body to react in whatever way it pleases. Now once my system is over the initial shock and I'm not actively in pain anymore, I personally seek closure in logical understanding of what and how and why things happened. So if I have access to, I will gather all the informations on what exactly happened step by step, what were the circumstances leading to this unfortunate event, and what could have or should have been done instead to prevent it if it is something that was preventable. Of course, none of this is going to bring the person or the animal back to life, but it really helps me to find closure as long as I can understand why these things happened and what happened exactly. Even if I don't like it, and even if it may makes me angry at specific people, it really helps me to find acceptance. The worst thing for me is not knowing. The worst thing for me is being confused and overwhelmed. I just feel very lost and very vulnerable. In gathering all of this information, what I usually do, I write little amateur case studies. I write it down, I analyze the living hell out of these things. And this act gives me a false but very comforting sense of control. It's a level up from feeling defeated and disempowered. And what I've noticed working with a lot of other people is that my conclusions and me doing this work is not only soothing me, but then sharing these informations and conclusions that I found also seems to help other people involved in those cases to find some kind of acceptance. It also brings with it the opportunity for betterment, for improvement. It allows me to expand my knowledge. It allows me to share that knowledge and to teach other people on how to do it better. So knowing that even though this is a flat out coping mechanism of mine, it is actually creating the base for something very valuable for the future. It's kind of like attaching a purpose to that death. And when you think about how medicine develops, what I'm doing is actually not that weird or uncommon or even morbid. It's essentially a pretty successful attempt at turning something really bad into something better. So once I'm done with this step, once I found this logical closure in my brain and focus on the good that I can make out of this, I need to actively go out and look for positivity. I need to actively look for the beauty of life. I said it before, my focus is to honor life, and this is one way of doing it. And I do this because I'm a conscious creator, and I know that getting all the information, writing these little case studies, and sharing these informations is a boatload of focus and energy on the things that I really do not want. And if I keep that focus going endlessly, my brain will have these topics activated and will trigger emotions that are not pleasant over and over and over and over again. So after I have successfully gathered everything and shared it, I need to force myself with discipline, but also compassion and gentleness, to stop myself thinking about this. I have to close down, shut down that area in my brain that is activated from this incident. And I do this by really actively looking for beauty. That means I go out for walks and I sniff the flowers. I take Donut for a walk and we find a little hedgehog and I appreciate how adorable it is. I spend a lot of time and focus into pampering my cats, pampering myself. I acknowledge that the sky is beautiful. I acknowledge the sunset is beautiful. I appreciate that the coffee this morning is tasting extra good. I'm really purposely focusing deliberately on the good things in life as best and as often as I can. Now, the thing with loss and death and grief is that it really is indeed connected to our fight and flight response. So that means when we experience this, we do get flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. And even if you follow your plan and intention and you're really out there looking for the good things in life, these hormones get processed in waves. It takes roughly 48 hours for your body and your system to really level and get back to its baseline. Now, it's also important to talk about the change in your lifestyle, your life routine. When we are losing something or someone that has been a major role in our lives and we have developed some kind of habitual dynamic with that person or animal, and all of a sudden they are gone, we easily get triggered by outside factors. You need to acknowledge that your routine and the way you lived your life has been disrupted. And this leaves a very open space for potential. Due to it being generally sad and a loss, we have a tendency to fill that open space with the potential of unpleasant negative emotions. We are as humans very prone to be highly aware of what we have lost and not very aware of what we could potentially gain. And this is normal because we've already lived that what we know, but we have not yet lived the future. But we also have the option to use this exact knowledge for the sake of deliberately creating an even better, more pleasant future for ourselves. So the absolute best advice I can give you whenever you get triggered into an unpleasant sensation is to be the sky about it. Don't fight your emotions. Don't fight your physical responses or reactions or sensations. When these emotions come up like this because you just got triggered, it just means that your brain has released a massive boatload of cortisol and adrenaline, and now your body is trying to process this, to cope with it. Let it out, cry it out, scream it out, kick a tree if you need. Vent, it's okay, just let it out. And if you do this without judging yourself, without feeling awkward about it, emotions get processed so quickly that you will naturally, automatically fall back into your neutral, slightly optimistic, pleasant, I'm just gonna go about my day state. But do your best to not think about it again and again and again. If you need a refresher on how to be this guy and how to process your unpleasant emotions and sensations, or you've never heard about this before, check out this video. I'm explaining everything in detail in that one. Now, last thing I do to help myself process and move on from loss and death and grief is highly individual, and you are absolutely welcome to choose your own unique thing that resonates best with you. I'm talking about a general perspective, mindset, opinion about the topic of death itself. Some people choose to be religious and choose to believe in a form of heaven, and that helps them coping with it. The phrase, they're now in a better place, is a quite popular and common one. Other people may choose to rely more on scientific things and develop the belief that once something or somebody is dead, they will not suffer anymore. They are gone. So this physical life and everything negative that comes with it is now over, and this can be a very soothing thought. I personally choose to see death from a very mixed point of view, where it's highly spiritual but also based in science. I don't actually believe in death as a necessity. That means while I do not deny its existence or the experience of dying, I chose to see it as not necessary and rather a choice. I also lean strongly on the fact of this universal condition or law that neither information nor energy can ever be gone. It cannot be lost. Therefore, it just transmutes into something else. I just want you to think about what feels good for you. How do you want to look at death and dying in general? What resonates with you? Do yourself a favor and don't think of death in ways where it makes you scared or brings you anxiety. You absolutely have the freedom to believe whatever you want, and you should always choose that which supports your well-being. And it really doesn't matter in the end if other people agree with you on that, or if there is proof or evidence against it. It really doesn't matter. As long as it supports your well-being, it's your belief, it helps you, and you absolutely should stick to it.